this movie was going to be hot garbage. In fact, many people still do think the movie's going to be awful. And it might be too late to change that perception. It's just so ingrained at this point. And the ad campaign for this film is so bad. So bad. I'm shocked at how bad the ad campaign for this movie is. It's a very different movie, and it's full of so many surprises. I'm not quite sure how you could I'm not sure if you could do a better ad campaign. And that's something else. Nia DaCosta might have directed a really good movie, but maybe she didn't think enough, like Gareth Edwards maybe to a degree. And I love that movie too, but it didn't connect. Maybe she didn't put her business hat on. We've talked often about how a good director and a producer will make sure they have the trailer moments in their movie and that they shoot those first so they're ready for the trailers. John Carter of Mars, another movie that I liked, which just crashed and burned and had a very bad ad campaign. That was another pleasant surprise. That's actually a very good comparison for this. If you like John Carter of Mars, I think you might like this movie. And I like that because that's not a female-oriented comparison, because I believe this movie should be able to go beyond the female and female-esque audience. But again, we'll see. It might be too late for the film. This might be like Elemental. Oh, that's another great comparison. I love that. Where everybody goes and says when they see it on digital and Disney Plus, oh, wow, this is actually really good. But getting people to the theater, especially during the crowded holiday season, and that this is going to lose its premium screen so quickly to Hunger Games, might be too tall an order. And of course, because of the day and age that we live in, if you like a movie or change your mind on a movie, as I have, I'm as surprised as you. Some people question your motives, but I've always told you what I honestly think, for good or bad. We've disagreed on a couple of movies here and there. And I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me on this one, but I think more will than not. I don't think this is going to be like one of the super divisive ones, and I think it's much better than Birds of Prey, creatively. Business-wise, I'm not sure how it's going to go. And I think it's a lot better than the first Captain Marvel. So, I wouldn't expect one of the greatest movies you've ever seen, but I think it's really, really fun and I know everybody doesn't like, fun and cute isn't the description everybody wants to hear, but that doesn't mean it's not a good time. All right, so when I went to see this movie, you know how they say try to go in with an open mind? I could not do it. And I did try, but the ad campaign was just too awful. And I was sitting in the theater, the IMAX theater, waiting for the movie to start, talking to a fellow critic. And I literally said, I hope this movie isn't too bad, because I've not been enjoying the online discourse. I mean, that's another crummy thing about, the movie space today. It's been no fun, no matter what side that you're on. And again, as I said, that's not only the fault of kind of society, but also the trailers and the clips are just awful. And again, I don't think this movie was engineered for a good ad campaign. And that's something Kevin Feige might want to put in his Marvel director's school. And then when I was sitting there, I looked up at the poster that they had projected on the IMAX screen while we waited. And I really did say, I wish the movie was as cool as that poster, because that poster is cool. And you know what? The movie is as cool as that poster. If you look at this poster and you're like, that's cool, you'll probably like this movie. So as I said, this has to be one of the worst advertising campaigns of all time. And I think that the movie has also been hurt, let's be fair, by some of the people who are associated with it, in front of and behind the camera, who've had some real bad PR missteps. They've been treated poorly by the press and the general public, well, some fans, let's say, but they've also kind of made it worse, or leaned into it. And they've made choices that I would not recommend. So that's an issue. I think they're still recovering from it. I don't know if they can. And then also, I really do feel that the actors' strike, and actors not being allowed to promote their films is really bad, particularly for this film, because the chemistry between the three main stars is a big part of what makes the movie work, and it would have been nice to have been able to put that on display with joint interviews and red carpet appearances to really kind of see how much fun they're having with the movie. Although again, some of these people have handled PR really poorly, so I don't know if they could do that. But if I were the PR person on this movie, I would sure try. I'd be like, can you guys just focus on having fun and not criticize anybody and just talk about how much fun the movie is? Because there's no negativity in the. I mean, they do kind of focus on. There's like a throwaway line by Nick Fury about how much hate Captain Marvel gets. But you can't refute that. It's true. No matter if you feel it's earned or not. I mean, it's just at this point a cold hard fact. And I kind of like that they put it into the film. Now, speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, he's fully awake here. I can't believe it. He's having fun again. That was refreshing. And the Khan family being caught in the middle of this MCU Cosmic adventure was really a fun idea and extremely well executed. They were great. I know sometimes people get tired of MCU comedy and sometimes it can go too far, Taika Waititi, but this was really funny and I really liked it. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit later about Freaky Friday, but it's that kind of funny, but in a good way. I thought it was going to be lame too. I can't believe it. So anyway, it's nice to have another director expand MCU Cosmic, with Nia DaCosta delivering a film that I would say lands somewhere between Thor Ragnarok, remember how much we all love that? And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This movie has a bit more heart than Thor Ragnarok. And also, I think, Thor Ragnarok, when you look back on it after Thor Love and Thunder, it's not quite the same, unfortunately. But that movie was also, very silly all the time, Thor Ragnarok. And this movie, while also quite silly, it has more levels. It goes back to serious and having heart at certain points. And I think that balances out the silly and the funny and the quirky very effectively. And while it comes close to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in terms of quality, that film has even more depth and I think is more sophisticated. I think it benefits from being the third installment in a franchise, and also, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then also, it had an extra 45 minutes. So that also can allow it to have a lot more depth. However, I love that the Marvels is so short and sweet. I would not change that. I think it hits the ground running and doesn't let up, with plenty of laughs and action. I mean, this is a great hour and 45-minute movie. When you add in trailers and stuff, that's 2 hours and 15 minutes. You can slip that into your day easily. A matinee, you can go see it in the evening and still have time to go to dinner. It's not your whole evening, and it has so many show times. I hope that helps its box office, which means there are more times that could be potentially convenient for you to go. I mean, you dip in and out, and you're like, well, that was fun. And so I think it was right to make this movie this runtime. And because of its fast pace, that allows them to put so much into the film. So it doesn't feel short either. You're like, wow, so much just happened. And then it gives you, it ejects you. And then you're like, oh, let's talk about it because I had such a good time. Also Megan. Remember how fun Megan was? If you thought Megan was fun, it's like that kind of a movie. And I know that's different for the comic book movie space. But remember, Marvel, when they were first kind of getting going, one of the things that benefited them was that they would mix in different genres. And I think that's great, and they do that here. But it's a shame that I hope people kind of think about that, because I think it makes the movie you can understand it more. Like the new Mean Girls trailer plays in front of this, and that is a good fit with this film. But I guys need to go to see this movie for it to do well. So I get nervous with some of the comparisons. I would think guys could enjoy this. I mean, it's fun. It's fun. As I said, clearly the pitch was Freaky Friday, the superhero version. And while that seemed incredibly lame in the ad campaign, I think the movie does end up having that fun sleepover quality. But guys like sleepovers, right? I mean, the Goonies, Ferris Bueller, that vibes here. And while I know some of us had felt that Captain Marvel was unfortunately cheated out of a proper sequel after having $1 billion movie, I actually really liked the way this turned out. I think it was quite charity's not the right, because these other characters earn their place, but it was very admirable of Brie Larson to decide to use her sequel and agree to it as a vehicle to introduce and further other further faster baby other female superheroes. I mean, and they do it well. So so I would love to see this Captain Marvel line of movies, or the Marvels movie, continue. And if they're able to make another one, I would love to see Freaky Friday stars Jamie Lee Curtis and or Jodie Foster join in, because they would actually fit perfectly. Like, also, if you enjoy Jamie Lee Curtis shenanigans, and in many of her movies, not just Freaky Friday, you would enjoy this film. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis would fit so well here. It's crazy. All right, now back to the horrible ad campaign, which truly is just so awful, so bad. So the only silver lining to that, though, is that there are a lot of surprises in the film. And I even knew a lot of stuff going in, from, my sources. And I still, although I'm looking a little less these days, because I want to be surprised when I watch the movie. And I enjoyed so many surprises while watching this film. It was really nice and a welcome change of pace. And I'm not just talking about the post-credit scenes, which I knew. I knew them extensively going in. Those I knew. And they've, as other scoopers have gone into more detail, which, I feel bad about. And in fact, the full credit scenes are up on social media, which is really unfortunate and not cool. But I mean, if you go watch them, you'll see I think they're very well executed, but they're more the cherries on top of a great sundae rather than overshadowing the film itself. This is really a very nice MCU package, in my opinion. And you know what? I do like the comparison to Winter Soldier, but just kind of like with a different genre. And Winter Soldier, like back in the day when, the movie itself was great, it mixed in a fun genre, and then it had a great little tease for what was next. I mean, I really feel that this is that. It's unfortunate that maybe this is a genre that's some comic book fans just can't get themselves to go along with, which, again, as I said, would be unfortunate. I mean, if you want the MCU to have longevity, it has to be able to expand like this. But again, based on the ad campaign, it just looked so awful. But tons of surprises, especially if you're a comic book fan. There are big and small nods to Marvel comic book storylines, as I said, throughout the film. And I hope they're not ruined for you. Because, again, it was so nice to be like, oh, I didn't know that these characters were in this movie, and I didn't know this was going to unfold this way, and that's very funny. Now, there are some very quirky scenes. There are two in particular that are just nuts. And I've seen a couple of people say that they don't think that they work, but I think that they did. I mean, when they started, I too thought they were ridiculous. I was like, way too silly. This is nuts. But as the scenes progressed, I thought that Nia DaCosta and company pulled them off. And they actually, it was a very fine line, but they walked it. And I was like, you know what? That's funny. That's clever. That's unique. I didn't see that coming. That's very well executed. So yes, Nia DaCosta. So much promise going into Candyman, a movie which had incredible inventive visuals, but just ended up not coming together narratively or as a piece of entertainment. And there's been a lot of drama behind the scenes for this movie, with both DaCosta and Marvel already playing the blame game against each other because of this film's spectacularly poor box office tracking. They're already trying to blame the other party. But I wish they'd held fast and stuck to their guns, because whatever they did, even if there were some clashes, it ended up working. This film is light on its feet, it's inventive with strong visuals, comedy heart, and a streamlined story that DaCosta keeps on track, and that doesn't fall into the third act bloated CGI trap that so many comic book movies suffer from. That was very refreshing. Like, I was going to compare it to Shang-Chi, another really fun recent Marvel movie, but that movie in the third act fell apart a little bit. I still like that movie a lot, but this one's leaner and meaner, and I think it benefits from that. Especially, again, because it's such a hard sell. At least you can be like, it's only 2 hours and 15 minutes of your life. You might like it. I have to say it because it's there. I feel bad because I think it might keep some of you from seeing the movie. But I really love the female energy in the film. And maybe we'll see, as I said, more women and certain groups liking this movie more than others. But, Greta Gerwig's Barbie, and I'd be curious to see Barbie was like 71% female or something, its opening weekend audience, but it still was huge. But Greta Gerwig's Barbie celebrates the idealism of women, while DaCosta's The Marvel celebrates regular women. And interestingly, I believe that helped the original Captain Marvel movie as well go up against Wonder Woman. I mean, it did make $1 billion, and Wonder Woman, which did very well, but Wonder Woman didn't make $1 billion. And of course, some of us have said it's because of the Skrulls that were introduced there, and because it came out between the two Avengers movies, and I think those are certainly factors for sure. But don't underestimate that, while Wonder Woman is a goddess, Captain Marvel is infinitely more relatable. And I think that is something that benefits the character that is being underestimated. And it continues to be a plus here. And now, though, she has 2 fellow female heroes who are equally relatable. I mean, it was really fun to just spend time with them. I liked hanging out with them a lot. And, at first you were like, oh, I don't know if I want to hang out with you guys. But then you were like, oh, we're having so much fun. I can't dislike you guys. This is great. So I got a kick out of seeing women depicted in this way, not just with that fun factor, but as both heroes and villains who are all incredibly awe-inspiringly powerful. I was like, that is cool. These women can punch, but they can also take a hit. And they also, at the same time, they can talk about their feelings and be vulnerable. I too, hearing this, even I'm like throwing up in my mouth a little bit. But I got to tell you, when I was watching it, I was like, respect. If only there was more of that in society. I liked it, especially, I guess, because of all the toxicity surrounding this film. And what was also cool is that the women in this film, act the way that women do when they let their guard down and nobody's watching, especially men. Although, as I said, men really need to watch this movie. But, once I was out with my dad and I was talking to another woman that I'd run into, and we really got excited talking about stuff and gossiping. And my dad was like, I've never seen you talk that way, and you've never talked that way to me. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you. And my dad was like, that was so fun. I loved being a part of that conversation, even from the sidelines. And I hope that guys have that same reaction to this movie. They're like, oh, I don't totally get it, and this is weird, and I've never seen this before, really, but it's fun. I hope that would be wonderful if that was how people reacted. So anyway, and also, while the energy is distinctly female, it doesn't sacrifice the action that a blockbuster movie like this needs. And we'll talk about the action in just a moment. But also, I want to point out that I really like the focus on Kamala's relationship with her mother. They're still kind of at odds, like they were in the Disney Plus series, but here you can really feel the love and how Kamala's mother, keeps her on track. She's almost like directing Kamala Khan. And I liked that. And it really adds further depth to the film. In fact, even more than you realize when you're watching it. And once the movie's over, you kind of get where everything's going here and how things mirror each other and play off of each other. And so the movie, again, moving so quickly, and there are so many surprises in it, but when it's over, you're like, wow, that was actually very well constructed. And I think that's why it hits as well as it does. And maybe why it doesn't work as well when you chop it up into clips and trailers. DaCosta is a co-writer as well, so she gets a lot of credit here, although we'll see how the movie does. Along with Megan McDonnell, who was a writer on WandaVision, so that's a plus, and Alyssa Karasik, who wrote for Loki and We Crashed, 2 other shows I loved, and is also a writer and producer on Larson's Lessons in Chemistry, which I know I have not been able to get myself to watch that, but I know some of you who said you really love that show, and I don't know, I still don't know if I'm going to go watch it, but it makes me a little more inclined after enjoying this film. Again, I want to make sure that we focus on the fact that the action is really good as well. Very good action. The switching, which again looked lame and awful in the trailers and clips, is actually really cool in the movie itself. I was like, oh, especially once it's allowed, again, chopping it up might not have worked. Once it's allowed to get going and they have it going for like some of these action sequences are like 10, 15 minutes, or I think, yeah, because it's a short movie, but you really feel like they're gaining momentum. And so that was really nice. I liked that. I love the switching, actually. I was surprised at how well it worked. We'll talk about some of the inventive ways that they use it in the spoiler review. And I also continue to get a huge kick out of how powerful Captain Marvel is. Oh, she's so powerful. It gives me goosebumps. Goose, right, her cat. And Monica, though, who levels up substantially in this film. That is also very cool. And then Kamala Khan's new power set is used very well. And they can afford to use it a lot because this is a movie. And that's great. But it's not just the directing, the actresses, and the script and the stunt team that sell this movie and sell the action, right? But the VFX, I think, are quite good. I've seen some people say they're not good. They're not perfect, and in some cases I was like, oh yeah, those are VFX doubles. But I gotta tell you, that was fleeting, and I bought it. I was like, that's cool. It's certainly not any crazier than the other times they've used digital doubles in Captain America and Avengers movies. And I thought it worked. And not just the action sequences, but I thought the space sequences were very well realized. As soon as the movie started and the Kree ship came out of like hyperjump or whatever, I was like, that's much cooler than I thought it would be. I liked that. In fact, in that regard, I think this is the best MCU Cosmic movie because, everything isn't just done for humor. There is a feeling of excitement here. Like they're further building out MCU Cosmic, and the movie takes some aspects of the planets and solar systems that we're visiting and the aliens that inhabit them and their technology and customs. In some points, it takes them very seriously, and it's really made the effort to think them out. And I thought that was great. I really liked that. I really feel like for the first time ever, before I felt Marvel Cosmic was just silly and like James Gunn's play space, which I'd come around on. But now I finally feel like other directors can play in here and it's becoming a real space. So I loved that. The production values, again, overall are great. And while the trailers made the movie seem like it was for streaming, when I was actually watching it on IMAX, and that might have been a factor, I became very aware that I was watching an expensive movie. I was like, those VFX look great. Look at those interfaces on the technology they're using. Oh, that picture is so clear. And I really loved seeing it. I loved seeing it on IMAX. Usually I tell you can do Dolby or IMAX, and I'm sure Dolby will be a great experience. But if you can do IMAX, I would try to. I really liked it on the IMAX screen. All right, so let's talk cast. I got to give a shout out to Iman Vellani. I see a lot of people singing her praises, and she has earned it. Her enthusiasm as a super fan is very infectious when you're watching the movie. You're like, how can you not love her? And she's got some great meta humor and commentary. I've seen comparisons to Tom Holland's Peter Parker, and I would agree with that, but it's even more than that. It's like dialed up to an 11. And Tom Holland you thought was an 11, but you didn't see Iman Vellani. However, she's not just fangirling. Sometimes I think in the past it's been a little bit annoying, but not here. They got the right balance. And I think part of that is that she has her superpowers so much here. Like, she's not just fangirling. Like, she not only talks the talk, but she walks the walk. And that is appreciated. Like, she doesn't just want to be a superhero. She has the goods. She can do it herself. So she doesn't become a burden. You're like, oh yeah, you are good. Come on in here. So that's great. And then also because she knows so much about superheroes, it actually ends up being helpful to the group. That she has some good ideas. And not just what they should do as a team, but she's kind of like their marketing person. And I have to say, especially for a movie that has such bad marketing, she's good. I wish Kamala Khan had done the publicity for this film. I think she would have done a better job. Teyonah Parris' Monica Rambeau, interestingly, has become the brains of the team. In the comics, Maria Rambeau is not a scientist. So this is a nice development for the character because, at least not any of the stories that I've ever read. She goes from just reacting to being like a first responder to being someone who identifies problems and formulates plans to deal with them. She is the science bro or science gal of this movie. And so she does a great job. Also in the comics, she hardly ever uses her intangibility, but here she uses it all the time. And I love it. I mean, a part of me was like, well, what about Kitty Pryde? What are we going to do with Kitty Pryde if Monica Rambeau is going on intangible all over the place? But it's used so well, it just got me excited for Kitty Pryde as well. I was like, that looks great. And there's other cool moments that I don't want to spoil, but I really liked Monica Rambeau here. And as for fans of Monica Rambeau in the comics, there are a bunch of fantastic nods and Easter eggs to her and Captain Marvel's comic book history. And as a comic book fan, I got a real treat out of that. I was like, oh, that was cool. Oh, I get what you're doing there. I get what you were referencing. I love it. Now, in this movie, both Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan are leveled up to be almost the level of Carol Danvers power-wise. But not quite, because Carol Danvers continues to be an incredible powerhouse. So powerful that it scares her. And that's all I'll say. But I like that development a lot. But even with just the little glimpses that we get of her raw power, I mean, maybe the movie could have been a scooch longer to lean in that a little bit more, maybe with an opening sequence. Boy, I was mesmerized. I was like, that was cool. And there's a lot left to explore with this character. This movie, though, I think is less about exploring Captain Marvel and more about exploring Carol Danvers. And on that front, I feel it's very successful. This, again, is the non-spoiler review. So here I'll just say that I thought that in the trailers, Carol interacting with Goose was like super corny. And I was like, why are you leaning into the cat lady stereotype? That's the last thing this movie needs. But people do love cats. And we talked about that even with Mario a little bit. But, I even enjoy Catterday every Saturday on Twitter. And then in the movie, for some reason, I was like, I can't resist any longer. I actually love Carol and Goose together. Like when he hops up on her shoulder for space adventures, I was like, that's awesome. I just couldn't dislike it. It was just too fun, too cute and adorable and too cool. And as I said, Samuel L. Jackson seems a lot more engaged as Nick Fury here than he has in a while. And the Khan family have a surprisingly large presence in the film that they totally earn. They are fantastic. And then there's Zawe Ashton as the villain. I mean, she did a surprisingly good job considering how bad she looked in the trailers, and you can see how far down she is in this review. So keep that in mind with your, in managing your expectations. And Marvel still has a huge villain problem, for sure. But at least her villainous goal in this movie was actually easy to understand, and I thought actually somewhat interesting. I was like, oh, when they finally explained what she was up to, I was like, oh, I get it. I kind of like that, and I like how simple it is. Plus, she had some great standout moments. She had some great visual moments. Oh, I can't wait to talk about them in the spoiler review. I was like, that looks awesome. Like it looked right out of a cool comic book page, like a full page panel. I was like, that was great. Park Seo-joon's role is very, very small, but certainly memorable. Certainly memorable. And, a lot more dignified than I thought it was going to be. And then, as I said, there are some cameos, which we'll discuss in the spoiler review. I hope nobody ruins them for you, and I hope you don't see them on social media in advance, because in addition to, even if you've heard about them a little bit, seeing them is just totally at a different level. So also, on that note, there are 2 end credit scenes still. One has been tacked on to the end of the film, so it almost seems like the end of the movie, but it's an end credit scene. So they're both still there, and I think they're both very good, very well executed. They get you very excited for what's next, but they don't overshadow the film. So I appreciated that, and I think that's because they don't show too much. They don't overplay their hand. They are very much teases, and I think that's important. And then also because the movie itself, I feel, is so strong. You couldn't overshadow it. You'd had such a good time with the movie, you just added to that fun with these end credit scenes. The second one is a mid-credit sequence, end credit sequence right after like the main title sequence that they have at the end. So as I said, I think this is a strong film. I think it's not only an improvement over the first Captain Marvel movie, but it further expands the MCU Cosmic. And it sets up the ability for Carol Danvers to not just share the stage, but to also potentially introduce other female heroes. And I think that's exciting. I mean, wow. I mean, I've always liked the idea of A-Force, but I never felt that they really did it very well. Although I liked that moment in Avengers Endgame. But I thought like the comic never really worked out. I was like, oh, this could be good, but it's not. But here I liked it. And I would love to see I would love to see this line of movies used for that going forward, if they get the chance to continue. And it's a real shame, again, how this film was promoted, some of the missteps made by the people who are associated with it and made it, and then also where we are right now in the fan space. But we'll see what happens. And Nia DaCosta, again, I think she ended up being an excellent blockbuster director, but it might be too late. So so we really have to see let's see what the Rotten Tomatoes score is. Let's see what the box office is. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So that's I really thought it was fun. I would see it again. I'm having trouble convincing anyone to go with me, so I don't know if I will. Maybe we'll do a watch along. Maybe this will be one of those movies we'll try and do a watch along for, because it's fun. So that's my non-spoiler review for the Marvels, which I recommend, again, you try and see on IMAX. And be sure to come back later this week for the Marvels spoiler coverage. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.